be giving you my Mount Rushmore of video game franchises. So, my Mount Rushmore, for those of you who don't know, in order for you to be part of the Mount Rushmore of video game franchises, is you need more than 4 entries in your franchise. If you don't know, Mount Rushmore obviously has the 4 heads of the presidents, and that we're going to do the same thing, but for video games that I like. So, number 1 on my list, this is my favorite video game franchise of all time. It's Fight Night. I really love me some Fight Night. I love combat sports. The only problem with combat sports like UFC is that the games aren't as great. A lot of the UFC games aren't that good. However, Fight Night games, none of the Fight Night games are actually bad. None of them are. They're all pretty good. Some are definitely better than others, but they're all good. Fight Night is a boxing game series that I love to go back to. Actually, my favorite game of all time is Fight Night Champions. But every Fight Night has something I love about it. Every game has something it does the best. Which is what I like, because it makes it so you go back and forth between the games. Like, one has a really good parry system, one has a really good head movement system. It's really smooth and fluid. So you get like the smooth head movement in one game that makes you feel like Muhammad Ali, and then you got like a really good parry system in another game. The roster, all these games offer something special that will make you want to crawl back to that certain game. A lot of games like game franchises have that like one game that everyone goes back to. With Fight Night, you don't get that because you go back to all of them because all of them have something that you like. They all do something the best, and it depends on what you're in the mood for, which I really like. Like I said, the roster in the games are amazing. The rosters are always great, and if you're a boxing fan, the Fight Night series is amazing. It's great. The only problem with the Fight Night, I got 2 complaints about the Fight Night series. First complaint is that John Mugabe isn't in any of the games, which isn't really a big problem because you could just make him. But I think it'd be really cool to have John Mugabe in the Fight Night games. It'd be a cool contrast like Mike Tyson because they're both like really heavy hitting boxers. I think it'd be super neat. Second complaint is that there hasn't been a Fight Night game in a very long time, which just kind of sucks because I'd love to see a Fight Night game on like the newer systems. I know we got like Undisputed, but I want to see like Fight Night. I want EA to like go back and make another Fight Night or remaster one of the old ones or something like that. But that would be cool. But yeah, that is why Fight Night is my number 1 favorite franchise on this list. Moving on. My second favorite franchise of all time is Batman Arkham. What can I say? It's Batman. The video games are great. There's 4 of them in the series. Basically, in this video game series, you play through Batman's career as Batman. So, like in the first game, you're in the middle of his career in Arkham Asylum, and then you go like 9 months later in Arkham City. And then in the third game, you go 8 years in the past on like one of his first days as Batman, which is super cool because you get to see Batman mature as you go through it. Because in the first Batman game, well, not the first one, but in Arkham Origins, the Batman when he's like really young, he's like super pissed off. He just wants to hurt people. He doesn't really want to do good. He just wants to hurt bad guys. He basically, he's Joe Biden in the 1990s.
I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society.
All he wants to do is hurt people. And he doesn't really care about doing good. But then you get to see that maturity and the stoicism later on in the series. And then we go all the way to the end of his career in Arkham Knight, where his identity is revealed, and then he blows up Wayne Manor and stuff like that. It's such a great series, and it's super cool to see Batman mature throughout the series, and super cool. And this is this game series I go back to every year and replay. Well, except for Arkham Knight. I don't replay that. I beat it once, and I'm never touching that again. Dude, that game is awful. But the rest of the series is just phenomenal. You got what's called a free flow combat system, where you have no restrictions. You can fight however you feel like fighting. It's super neat. It's a great combat system. And villains are great. The plots in the games are always good. I've liked that. My favorite video game in the series is Arkham City. Arkham City is the perfect game, has the perfect plot story to it. So yeah, that's why Batman Arkham is the second best game on the series. Next on my list, this is going to be a hot take. Splinter Cell.
Gaze.
I love stealth games. Stealth, which makes sense because the Arkham series, and then if you see the next game on my list, you're going to really see this. I love stealth games. Stealth is really fun. I've always found something interesting about being not seen, like sneaking around people. It's being there but not being noticed. I've always found something interesting, and it's really something that's died in the gaming scene. You don't really see a lot of good stealth games anymore. Either the stealth games are either brain dead, stupid, easy, for example, like Ghost of Tsushima, or they're just all out action shooters, and it just kind of sucks. Which is cool to go back to these though, because like these games are amazing. The stealth is super cool and stuff like that. And there's not a single bad game in this series. I know some people say that, like, Conviction's a bad game, but I don't think Conviction's bad at all. It's my favorite, personally. But Conviction is even really good. But no, this series is amazing, because it's stealth. There's so much you could do. You got so many gadgets you can use. There's so many different ways you could beat the game. You could, like, beat the game if going through, like, killing everybody, but then you could beat the whole game by not killing anybody at all, which is just super cool. Like I said, you don't see that anymore in video games. There's not many video games where you go through the game and you go through without killing anybody. It's super neat to be able to do that, because you don't see that anymore. Like, for example, you can't go through Grand Theft Auto without killing anybody, but you could beat Splinter Cell. At least you could beat some of the Splinter Cell. You can't beat all of them, but you can beat a lot. You could beat some of the Splinter Cell games without killing a single person, which is just super cool, in my opinion. I really like that stealth, non-lethal approach. Just going in, going out, boom. Super cool. It's such a cool game series. If you haven't played Splinter Cell, I don't know what to do for you. Because unless you have a computer or an old system, you're not going to be able to play the games, but they're just great. So I realized that's not true at all. If you have an Xbox One or any of the new Xbox consoles, you can actually play them because they're backwards compatible. And that even includes Pandora Tomorrow, which is that rare Splinter Cell game that you can't really get anywhere else. Plus, it's made by Tom Clancy, or they were made by Tom Clancy, which means they're going to be super realistic. And they're so realistic, in fact, that in the first game, you actually train at the farm, which is an actual CIA training base. The games are just amazing. They're great. I love the games. I love stealth. And that is why it makes my third best franchise on this list. Before we get in to the end here, before we get to my last pick, I'm going to give you some of my honorable mentions. Honorable mentions. First honorable mention is Tomb Raider. I'm a big Indiana Jones fan, and it's basically an Indiana Jones game, except you're an acrobatic female. And they're great. I mean, they're not the best games on the planet, obviously, but they're fun. They're very fun games. Fun gameplay. You get like super neat acrobatic gunplay, which is like something you don't see a lot in video games. There's not a lot of video games that let you do what Tomb Raider lets you do. And the platforming is amazing in those games as well. It's some of the best platforming ever. Maybe besides Enslaved. But yeah, you know, they're great games. Tomb Raider. They're pretty fun. They're all pretty great. I don't know if I have a favorite Tomb Raider actually. Second honorable mention on my list is Resident Evil. Resident Evil is amazing. It's done so much for gaming. And it's literally changed with the times. Resident Evil has gone from like the PS1 where you had like this weird tank controls, and then it moves on to like third person action in like Resident Evil 4. But then you go to like the new Resident Evils where you play in first person and it's more scary. The games are great. They're not on my Mount Rushmore because Resident Evil has a lot more downfall than you remember. Like going back, there's a lot. Like Resident Evil 3, the remake, is pretty bad. Like it's not a bad game, but it's like annoying because they could have done so much more with it. Or like Resident Evil 8 is pretty bad. Resident Evil 5, if you're not playing with 2 players, is really bad. So it's not on my Mount Rushmore, but it's one of my favorite franchises. So I thought I'd give it an honorable mention. And yeah, the characters are great, stories are great, and they can be pretty scary too. They're pretty cool. All right, last on my list, Sniper Elite. That is the last on my list. Best game franchise, one of the best game franchises of all time. Super underrated game franchise. Because, like I said before about Splinter Cell, this is another one of those game franchises that's super cool. Yeah, what is there not to love? It's stealth, World War II. The first one is probably the worst, but even the first game's not even that bad. And actually, the first one's pretty good, actually, because if you... So remember back in the day when you had the books that went with your games? You got a video game, you opened it up, and there's like a book inside of it. So in Sniper Elite, when you get that game, and you have the book helps you play the game, which is super neat. It like really helps you out. It teaches you different things and stuff like that. It's super cool. So if you're playing Sniper Elite 1 with the book and you get to read the book and stuff like that while playing the game, it's super fun and super satisfying. It's great. And I love it because I'm a big history guy. I like World War II stuff. And these games give you so much replay value. This game, in my opinion, is the best bang for your buck if you want replay value. Because these games are like these missions that you play. There's like 8 missions in each game. Plus you get like 4 side missions. You get 4 missions for DLC. So, and they're like 2 hours long each. Like each mission takes you a long time. Like I just played one yesterday actually. It took me like an hour and 7 minutes to play it. And with these huge big missions, there's multiple ways you could go through and beat them. You could take different paths. You could like go all out violent and shoot everybody, but you could also play super stealthy, reserved, and like not fight, not get in combat situations. It's super cool. Plus there's nods to historical events, which is super cool if you're a fan of history. The satisfying kill animations are top tier. One like the X-ray sniper kills. Oh my goodness, dude! Those are my favorite things. I just think that's super neat because you get to like see where your sniper hit. You get to see how accurate you are. And out of all the great things that these games provide, I don't think there's anything better about these games than the difficulty slider. The skill floor and the skill ceiling is probably the widest of any game. Playing this game on the hardest difficulty is probably harder than Dark Souls on the hardest difficulty. Well, I don't think Dark Souls has a difficulty meter, actually. But, no, like, these games are hard if you want to play them the hardest difficulty, because you have to adjust for wind shift and the sniper drop and stuff like that. It's so cool and so neat. Like, once you actually start to do it and play it like that, it is super fun. Play on the hardest difficulty, and then you can, like, change what you like about it. You can customize the difficulty. So, say you want, like, the bad guys to be super alert and super hard, but you don't want the sniper drop to be as high or as drastic. You can do that. You can literally customize the game to your liking, which is just, like I said, super fun. Or let's say you want to, like, learn the sniper drop off, but you don't want it to be extremely hard. You can make it so the sniper drop's realistic, but you could put the enemies on, like, a lower difficulty so it's easier, so you can learn. Like I said, dude, these games are amazing. I think they're so good. And that is why Sniper Elite is on my Mount Rushmore. It's the last on my list. So, what do you think? Give me your thoughts down below. I hope you liked this video. You want to see more like it, you can see I make videos like this, or I try it every day. It's going to get even harder now that I have a baby to take care of. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll try my best. But anyways, I'll see you guys later. Peace.